Before we get into this guide, I quickly want to remind you that I have reworked my Patreon tiers now. So if you are interested in private coaching, then become one of the 48 patrons I have now in the description below. Hey, IOSTUX here. Tracer is Overwatch's cover girl. The character everyone wants to play as when they first buy it. The character with the craziest kit. I mean, she can jump through time, how cool is that? Sadly, she is incredibly difficult to play, and a lot of players get frustrated quickly. They want to be like her in the trailer, but end up blinking into a garbage can. In this guide, I want to help you with that. My name is IOSTUX, and I am currently a 3950 SR player, having played in the 99th percentile in both Season 1 and 2. I have led a small team and currently coach almost 50 people on a regular basis. I actively follow the pro scene and engage myself with the intricacies of getting the most out of those pixel characters on the screen. Now that my qualifications are out of the way, I want to get into this in-depth guide on how you can become a better Tracer player. Right here, you can see what we will talk about today. You can pause the video and read through them if you want to. Excuse the poor picture here. Sadly, Vislo, the site I use for my graphs, wasn't working correctly, so I had to improvise. All I am trying to show here is that when you start to play her, you will probably fail miserably. Her abilities are complicated and her gameplay is fast-paced. The fact that she only has 150 HP doesn't help with that. But one of the great things about Tracer is the constant improvement you will face. Every time you play her, you will get a little better, and that is incredibly rewarding. Right here you can see Tracer's skill set, a radial diagram in which I showcase what kind of skills you as a player need to bring to the table in order to be successful with her. As you can see, movement is a clear 10 out of 10, mainly because mastering her blinks to perfection is going to the limits of what's humanly possible. Aim follows that with a 9 out of 10, mainly because of how aim reliant she really is, and the fact that she moves around so much makes it hard to properly track your targets. Playing her with a trackball is definitely out of the question. The reason I put teamwork so high is because she relies a lot on communication with her team, same with the game sense. She needs to be aware of cooldowns and the general state of the game in order to be successful. I put positioning rather low, mainly because her mobility makes her position out very important. Other characters like McCree on the other hand lack this mobility, so if they are out of position it can be hard for them to get back to safety. Lastly, let's go over the stages of Tracer play. I split her up into 5 phases. First we have the soldier phase. At the start of a Tracer player's career they tend to be afraid because of her 158th pull. They stay at long range, have trouble moving around, deal barely any damage, and as a result of that they don't get any ultimates. The next phase is the slowpoke phase. Here they realize they can and need to be more offensive, but everything she does is in slow motion. She blinks too late, dies with her recall up, misses ult opportunities. The flank only phase is when you as a player get a feel for the movement, but you tend to go into deep. You always stay behind enemy lines, which more often than not leads to your death. The duelist phase is when you learn how to take fights. You can track and deal with enemy cooldowns, and you know when to pick a fight. The last phase is where it's all about perfection. You coordinate ult combos, you pick key targets like Ana or Soldier, and you outplay your opponents either by juking them with your blink or by dodging their abilities and distracting their supports. Stats are kind of boring, but let's quickly go over them. Her gun has 40 ammo, and each tap deals between 3 and 12 damage depending on the fall-off. Keep in mind that she shoots twice per tap, so you could only click your mouse 20 times until the ammo was gone, because she shoots with both her guns simultaneously. She also deals 40 rounds per second, so it takes around 1 second to shoot, and reloading takes 1 second as well. Right here I want to showcase the damage she does. First, you can see Tracer shooting at a Roadhog, mainly dealing body shots at close range. Right here, you can see her do the same thing, but this time she's standing more at the mid-range. And as you can see, the damage she loses isn't that great. But once we move over to long range, you can see that the fall-off hits her really hard, and she barely tickles the Roadhog, usually just feeding ult charge. Next, let's go over her shooting rhythm. Emptying the clip takes 1 second, as well as reloading, so getting a rhythm for it is very easy, but also makes you predictable. Be aware of this rhythm, it's really important. Just for the sake of completeness, here you can see her shooting rhythm. It's 1 second shooting, 1 second reloading, 1 second shooting, 1 second reloading, and so on. Let's have a look at how much damage Tracer deals against armor. Keep in mind that her damage is heavily reduced in this case. Armor, in case you don't know, decreases the damage instant by 50%, up to 5 per shot. So unless she's staying at super close range, this basically halves her damage. Let's have a look at an example. Right here we can see Tracer shooting on the back of D.Va, so this is all body shots again, just with Roadhog. However, this time she shoots against armor. First you can see her shooting at close range, which deals some damage, but it's not really that great. Then you can see her at mid-range, which is depressing. And I don't think I need to mention how her damage looks like at long range. It's atrocious and a complete waste of time. Focusing is also super important as Tracer. Try to focus key targets that are a threat to your team. For example, Ana, because you won't be able to kill anything with her up. ZENYATTA, because you can deny your team's ultimates. Or Soldier, because you can kill your team. Try to ignore tanks like D.Va, because you don't deal any damage. RYTHM, because you just feed ult charge, and you could get hooked. And REINHARDT, because again, his armor makes your damage negligible. Focusing is important, because without it, you will have no impact and feed the runner unnecessary ult charge. Let's get over to the part where communication becomes super important. ZENYATTA is a very strong pick at the moment, and the synergy he has with Tracer is insane. It is difficult to do in pack games, and benefits a lot from premates, but if you can get the communication right, it is incredibly rewarding. ZENYATTA's kit supports Tracer perfectly. His Orb of Harmony keeps Tracer alive while she wreaks havoc in the backline, and his Discord Orb makes one clipping a lot easier. Calling out Discord targets means that Tracer can kill people incredibly quickly, even at range. If you play Tracer with a ZENYATTA at your team, make sure to look out for Discord Orbs. Right here you can see the massive difference Discord Orb makes. I compared the shot from earlier, where we shot the Roadhog, with one where he's discorded, and you can clearly see the massive difference in damage. While the meta doesn't really support it, Tracer and ZENYATTA, if they are viable, are a really strong duo Q combo and well worth learning. Okay, let's go over one clipping. With 20 taps at 12 per hit, she deals up to 240 damage against HP or shields at perfect range. This number is not very realistic though, because you need to factor in missed shots, headshots, and damage falloff. At most ranges, hitting all shots is hard. Still, if you aim well, you can one-clip characters, which basically means you 100 to 0 them with 40 shots. This makes the difference between a good Tracer and a bad one. Right here you can see about the range it takes for a Tracer to one-clip a 200 HP character like Soldier. One-clipping characters like Mei and Reaper becomes a lot more difficult, because this time the 240 max damage isn't enough, and you need to land some headshots or a melee at the end, but it's still possible. Let's continue with blink loading. This isn't an actual term, but I guess I might as well make it one. While you are reloading, you are very vulnerable and you can't really do much. And while shooting, performing blinks can mess up your aim big time. This is where blink loading comes into play. First, empty your clip, and while you blink, you reload. This minimizes downtime and can give off the impressions of an unstoppable Tracer player who simply can't stop shooting. You should definitely practice it, as it can be a little weird at first. This is also where the rhythm with reloading and shooting comes into play, because you can actually blink load 4 times, since after your first blink, the last one recharges by the last one. Here you can see blink loading in action. Let's go over blink movement. Never blink towards an enemy. If their crosshair is already on you, then they don't have to reposition it. Quite the opposite. All you did was get into their range and make yourself a bigger target, so you just completely wasted a blink. Instead, it's a lot better to strafe blink or blink through. This makes it a lot easier to keep track of your enemy, while they won't accidentally hit you. Let me show you an example. Right here we can see what happens if you decide to blink towards someone. This soldier probably didn't even expect our blink, but he still hit his helix rockets. Instead, it's a lot better to blink to the side. Readjusting your aim isn't that difficult, but this way you won't accidentally get hit by some of his shots. Resource management is a concept originating from MMOs and fighting games. If you have no blinks left, you are very vulnerable and immobile. However, if you have all your blinks available and in recharged ones go straight into the trash can. Resource management is a core mechanic, so you should always have at least one spare blink in case you really need it, but you should never cap at 3, as to not miss out on regenerating ones. Stalling is one of Tracer's strongest assets. You can get back into the fight extremely quickly, which goes well with your lower HP pool. At the beginning, this will lead to you dying a lot, and this makes it a little easier. You can jump back on point in order to stall the game and give your team some extra time to return. Overtime tapping is something rarely mentioned, but incredibly important in my opinion. Staying on the point during overtime is a waste and risks your life unnecessarily. The solution? Tapping. Instead of staying on the point, making you an easy target, you quickly tap on it to refresh the timer. This makes you harder to kill, and not dying means you can help your team in a potential retake that you made possible. Another intricacy of Tracer's blink is blink dodging. You need to keep in mind that you can dodge some important abilities using your blink, for example Zarya's Graviton, REINHARDT, hooks, and even fire strikes. Right here you can see this in action. I simply blink to the REINHARDT and he completely misses his charge because of it, usually ending up in a really bad position. Jumping is one of the worst habits you can have on any character, since it makes your movement predictable. The only exceptions are Lucio when he's wall riding, and Genji when he is double jumping over enemies. Don't jump through anything but time. Tracer is so incredibly squishy, meaning that she is easy to kill, that she can actually die in the middle of a single jump. Mei's right click, for example, is a lot easier to hit on a jumping Tracer. Strafing is always preferred. Now obviously it's pretty hard to show this in an example, but right here you can see me jumping around against a Mei, and it wasn't very hard for her to hit a headshot on me. Another thing I quickly want to showcase is how quickly Tracer can get back to the point. Right here I'm in a little race with ZENYATTA, and I use 4 blinks. I know that I don't have any cooldowns here, but this is the average amount of blinks you can do in order to get back on the point. As you can see, ZENYATTA is coming pretty late. Also, Tracer actually has increased base movement speed, I think by around 30%, which you can see in this little clip, where she is clearly faster than the ZENYATTA. Now, you may be wondering what you need this information for, and it's pretty simple. You can outrun characters like REINHARDT or Winston when they are chasing you, even without using your blink. As far as I know, this also applies for Genji, by the way. Alright, next, let's go over Tracer's recall. You need to realize how incredibly important this cooldown is. It decides the tempo at which she plays. It decides whether she can play aggressively or not. The cooldown is very long at a solid 12 seconds, and it has a cast time of over 1 second. Never waste this ability, ever. Recall returns her HP to the highest it was in the past 3 seconds. Keep in mind that you can't lose any health. It also completely reloads her clip, like McCree's combat roll. Quick little fact, did you know that Tracer doesn't actually reload her shots? She always uses the same 40 and simply beams them back through time into her gun, so she can fire them again. I don't know, I think that's pretty cool and stuff, but anyways, keep this in mind for duels. Right here you can see the regenerating abilities in action. Also, always use a health pack over your recall unless you absolutely have to. Recall heal doesn't give you any ult charge, and it doesn't regenerate any shields or tourbillon armor, so make sure that you keep this in mind. You won't keep your tankiness after you used it. One very confusing part is the movement of her recall. Some may think it returns her to where she was 3 seconds ago, but that is partially wrong. It returns you to the position you were in relative to space. Tracer is effectively defleeted from the map during the cast time, so she can dodge any abilities with it, like D.Va's ultimate or McCree's Deadeye. Right here you can see what I mean with relative to space. If I drop down, I'm not dropped back like into the air, but instead directly on the platform. And the same thing happens here. D.Va knocks me down, and I'm being warped through space back onto the platform, even though that isn't my position where I was before. Right here you can see how my recall blocks the D.Va ultimate, and you can actually see this as well with the Deadeye, but this is a little bit more difficult, but I actually dodged the shot using my recall, which if mastered can help you a lot. Recall also dispels. Tracer is incredibly vulnerable when discorded or Zarya ulted, but you can use recall to remove these debuffs on you, or to cancel debuffs before they are applied, like Mei's freeze or Sombra's hack. This doesn't dispel any buffs though, so you won't lose your Zarya bubble because of it. Right here you can see a dispel in action. Let's go over Tracer's ultimate now. It is arguable how well it fits her kit, but I guess a time bomb is better than nothing. You need to know that its AoE damage is higher when it's stuck to the ground compared to when it's stuck to like a character, and that it deals a solid 400 damage, meaning that it can one-shot even a Zarya. It has a 1 second travel time and can be incredibly difficult to hit, so make sure that you practice it. Right here you can see this in action. In this clip, ZENYATTA survives, but once I throw it on the ground, the AoE damage actually kills him. Alright, so far this information has been pretty useful. Let's go over something not very useful to know. Did you know that sticking it on a target actually deals 5 initial damage? No idea what that could be used for, but it is supposed to deal 10 initial damage when it's stuck to a head, but I can't really confirm this at all. If you know more about this, then let me know. It is really not relevant in the slightest, and I can't think of a situation in which it would, but it's a good bit of trivia for cocktail parties, I guess. Right here you can see it, so when she sticks it directly to me, I take 405 damage, and when I walk onto it, it only deals 400 damage. Nice! You can actually counterplay Mei's ice block, similar to how you can do it with Junkrat's trap. Hit the sticky grenade on top of her ice block, and if you time it right, it will drop down on Mei as soon as the ice block fades, sticking to her. This can guarantee you a pick if you practice it. Right here you can see what I mean in action. Okay, so this next section is kind of long because I'm gonna go over all bomb targets and what you need to like focus on. So you can just skip ahead if you aren't interested in it, but I still heavily recommend it. Mei can drop the ultimate with her ice block. Roadhog simply has too much HP and can just survive it. Lucio can use his ultimate if he times it right. D.Va has way too much HP and she can use her ultimate or her defense matrix to block it. Zarya's barrier blocks it off completely, if timed right even on teammates. Tracer can simply dodge it with recall and it drops on the ground. Reaper can simply use RYTHM and it drops on the ground. If timed correctly, he can even dodge it with his teleport. Winston just has way too much base HP and, you know, if he ults, then that will heal him back up. REINHARDT hat ebenfalls zu viele Lebens. Top can use his ultimate to get more HP. And ZENYATTA can just use his ultimate to become invulnerable. Genji can deflect it if he does it right, but other than that, he's usually a kill. Same thing with Pharah, she's usually a pretty safe kill too if you manage to stick it to her. Widowmaker is a safe kill, as is McCree. And Junkrat, although be aware of his bombs after he dies. Bastion can survive it if he uses his ultimate, but other than that, it's a safe kill too. Okay, this is really funny, but you can actually stick it to an enemy Junkrat tire and you can kill them with it. And it's really stupid, but really funny too. But yeah, you know, Hanzo is a safe kill too, same thing with Mercy, you know, she can't do anything against it. Soldier can't heal himself against it, so he's usually a safe kill too. Same thing with Symmetra, although she can block it with her shield if she would be good. And, you know, Sombra can use her translocator, so you should be a little careful about that. One of the most consistent ways of getting kills with Tracer is to combine it with Zarya's ultimate. This can only be countered by Lucio's ultimate, which should be easy enough to track, but ZENYATTA, for example, can't save his team. Communication is key in this case. Thanks to Tracer's mobility, though, she can follow up on any Zarya ultimate in 99% of the cases. Also, make sure to throw it on the ground for the extra AoE damage though, don't stick it. Timing is also important. I mean, it's Tracer, what did you think? It has a 1 second cast time, which is the time until it leaves her hand as she lobs it, and a 1 second fuse until it detonates, meaning that it takes 2 seconds for it to kill anything. Keep this in mind with enemy cooldowns. You may throw it when you are sure the enemies don't have anything up, but by the time it explodes they may cool down. Make sure to use it early enough. Zarya's, for example, can react to it too. It is not as fast as it seems. Don't be too predictable with your ultimates. So when should you use her ultimate? You need to be aware of it charging very quickly, even passively. If you can confirm at least 1 kill, it's already worth it. For example, taking out the enemy Ana makes it worth already, since it fulfills the win condition, something I mentioned in my video about win conditions. If the enemy Ana is dead, the enemy team won't get healed and Ana won't get any ultimate charge. Dueling as Tracer is very important and can have a huge impact if done right. You need to be aware of matchups though, know what you need to do in order to win them, and be aware of their cooldowns, since you need to know how much time you have to abuse them. Avoid their abilities using your own mobility, either your blink or your recall. You can juke abilities like McCree's Flashbang or Rotork's Hook, for example. Don't force anything though. Punish enemies, but don't feel like you have to do something. And one aspect of dueling many people glance over, steal their health packs. This is incredibly important as Tracer. Taking a duel around a health pack makes you so much stronger and can turn a 1v1 around. Health pack management is also incredibly important. Relying on health packs allows Tracer to position herself very offensively, and she becomes independent from her healer's line of sight. You should definitely know all health pack locations on every single map. And you should also go to them sooner rather than later. Generally, I see many Tracer players fighting around health packs and being very close to health packs, but they have 40 HP, but for some reason they don't realize that they should probably just take it. Dying as Tracer is a lot worse than, you know, missing out on the fight for 3 seconds because you need to heal yourself. Also, this relieves pressure from your healers. Your healers are probably busy healing other people, and with your recall and proper health pack usage, you can be very, very independent, which is great. Managing time, shitty pun intended. Don't rush. You don't have to make a play all the time. If you are low HP, heal up. If you don't have any blinks, wait. If you don't have your recall, wait. If there is no good ult target, wait. Most of the time when I look at Tracer VODs, wait is the first thing I tell them. They are always rushing all over the place, they think the game acts so fast, but Overwatch isn't actually that fast. I mean, okay, it's faster than games like Counter-Strike, but sometimes you can just take your time and actually think about what you're doing. And of course, it's slower than just going in directly, but dying costs you a lot more time than just thinking about what you're doing for a couple seconds. So what about Tracer on defense? It's kind of meh. It can work well, but not as good as on attack. Forcing plays is a lot worse on defense, and while you can annoy enemies behind the choke, it's super difficult. picks aren't nearly as useful on defense as they are on attack, but it is easier to get one. It's important to kill key targets like McCree or Ana if you decide to play her on defense. So what about King of the Hill? In my opinion, she's a great pick on King of the Hill, and it's probably her strongest game mode. She can stall the point, for example, and picks are super valuable and easy to get. She has constant combo potential, mainly because of the speed at how this game mode operates. There are a lot of chokes and flanks she can abuse. Also, there are health packs all around, so she's super independent from her supports. The maps are also very compact, which means the enemies can't hide, and she can usually find someone, especially the swords, very easily. So, Tracer on King of the Hill, I can definitely recommend it. If you want to practice with Tracer, I highly recommend you check out Overwatch Dojo's guide for warming up with her. There are some great drills to look at, and I really recommend it. It's not really practice per se, but it's definitely something to consider if you have trouble warming up, and it's a really good routine, and I definitely recommend it. And for pro players to watch, I can recommend Surefor. I mean, he's good, you should watch him, that's it.
Tracer's not viable against triple tank. Don't pick it, swap, please swap, don't go on Tracer. But I've got a 71% win ratio on her this week. She's in fact incredibly good against triple tank. Got a 71% win ratio. Got a 71%, got a 71, got a 71, got a 71.
Hey, IOStax here, and today I want to talk about the answer to the tank meta. My teammates always tell me to switch off Hanzo and Widowmaker. Wow, they suck against tanks. But in fact, I had a 100% win ratio on both of them, making it pretty obvious at this point that Widowmaker and Hanzo are the true answer to the tank meta. And the reason pros don't pick them is because they simply lack the knowledge and game understanding that I do. Okay, let's be real for a moment. Some people say that Tracer is the solution to break the tank meta, but I don't think that's true. She's hookable, deals trash damage, and she relies on enemy misplays. It's sad that these people get so much attention even by Blizzard, but we can't do much about it. I hope to fix some of the damage in this video. Again, I don't want to personally offend anyone or anything like that, but I just think that a lot of people they simply don't know any better and they rely on the information of YouTubers. And obviously, my audience is not comparable to what they boast, so I know that this probably won't have that big of an effect, but I still think that it's very important to mention it. I still hope that this guide helped you to understand a little more about Tracer. I've really put in a lot of work and I used all of my knowledge in order to help you out. If there's anything wrong with it, then please let me know. Just write a comment or post on the Reddit thread, because this feedback is what keeps the Overwatch community knowledgeable and, you know, keeps people like me and others from spreading misinformation if we simply don't know any better. My name is RYTHM, and I'd like to thank you for learning.